So I thought it was, okay, is she trying to gauge if he's an ethical person? That's where I thought it was going with, okay, well, you walk by a field, would you take them? It almost sounds like a question you would ask like a small child about stealing or shoplifting. Hello and welcome to Awake at the Wheel. So just the other day I was reading that apparently there are a number of TikTok trends that are, quote, ruining people's relationships. So in doing some reading here, I guess there's these things called tests that people do. And these tests are actions that they perform, and there is a desired response from one's partner. And if they don't do that, you should break up or dump them, or they're not right for you. But there's, as we've spoken about before, lots and lots of bad advice out there about relationships. So although I don't know which ones we're going to be viewing today, I surmise it is amongst that bad advice that we've seen before. So without further ado, should we jump into the first one, Oren, or do you have any thoughts on that before we do so?
I can't wait to see what we're going to watch.
All right, let's see the first test, and we'll discuss what we think about it.
I really want an orange right now.
All right, try here, but I got you, buddy. Here you go.
You'll get me it? No, yeah. But I really want it, but I hate peeling it.
You hate peeling it?
Yeah,
right,
it just gets really messy.
Okay.
And I have nails. It'll get underneath them.
Tough luck, buddy. Go ahead and do her.
You're not gonna peel it for me?
Dude, okay. As if I don't do enough.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm being for real. Okay?
You can't fucking peel this orange for me.
Dude, I ask you to do things all the time.
I do everything. I just did your fucking laundry.
No.
And you can't peel this for me?
Dude, come on, man.
Seriously?
No. Figure your life out, dude. It's not all about what your man can do for you. It's about what you can do for yourself, right?
No, but a good boyfriend would peel this for me, right, or do something for me that I'm perfectly capable of. Obviously, I can peel this, but if you were...
a great boyfriend would tell you to do it yourself. I'm not a good boyfriend. I'm a great one. And I'm trying to make you strong and independent and build you up as a female.
Well, that's the point. I can do it. I can do it myself, but the point is that you would do it for me.
Yeah.
As an act of service.
But then you wake up and you realize, that you can actually just do it yourself. And you're not even that special. That's the thing. It's get that in your fucking skull, dude. You're really not that special.
Okay, then I'll just peel this orange for myself then.
Alright, go ahead. Took you long enough.
Oh boy. Oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. So if this is a true representation of their relationship, I don't think that the orange is the deal breaker. I'll start with that. So I think the spirit of this, which she did touch on, was acts of service, which is one of the love languages created by Gary Chapman, discussed often by John and Julie Gottman. But it doesn't sound like this term acts of service is part of their regular relationship vocabulary, because the boyfriend in this situation didn't say or acknowledge or anything. I think that this, I have so many thoughts here. I can't even formulate it into one clear thing, but just the sheer amount of disrespect from both of them, I think was hugely problematic. And this whole idea of he was kind of throwing in her face that she should be independent. And if you want to be I don't know what his exact words were, but be a strong, independent woman, then you should be able to do that yourself, which she in turn said, well, you should be doing things for me, even if I can. So what I'm seeing there is a very clear discrepancy in their values about who should be doing what for whom and why and how in the relationships. That's a big one that stands out to me. But I think at the crux of it here, there's three things I'm noticing: clear lack of clear communication, clear lack of respect for one another, and as far as let's say two. Those are the two main ones that I'll leave it at for now.
Okay, so gosh, I'm gonna try to. I'll just say a few things, and then I'll let you take over because otherwise I can go on for hours on this one. All right, so if I had to choose who is the bigger jerk, he is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if this is real. Now the thing is, like her, even when he said something, I forget what he said to her, like you're not even that special.
Yeah.
She didn't react. Okay, so either she's heard that many times, or this is unfortunately like so much on social media, just something that they made up. Okay, because even the way she's talking, she does not sound like she's being genuine. Okay, she sounds like she's acting. However, she knows the camera is there, so that might be why she's speaking that way. He, I mean, if he's acting, he's not. He's doing a better job than she is, right? He might be legitimate, but the point is, people have to recognize so much of this is garbage. People are manipulating you just for their clicks, likes, and the monetary benefits that they get from that, right? So let's just be mindful of that. But again, if this was real, I think he's being the bigger jerk. Number one. Number two, I think I said this on another podcast, but I think it's so important because you mentioned like the acts of service and the respect. So I believe I've done this before, but I'll say it one more time. I think it's really important for people to understand so we can go from these simple videos to actually more profound things about relationships. So I always talk with my couples or someone who's in a relationship about the inequity that can be felt in the relationship. Now, again, I don't want to go too much. Like we'll integrate all this into the podcast, but there are four main factors. I say it's 3 plus 1. I put these three factors together. And when I asked so many people, a lot of them mention this fourth one, which is respect. Okay, so it doesn't quite fit into the three that I'm about to talk about, but just because so many people mention it, I go, okay, these are kind of the building blocks of inequity and therefore resentment in the relationship. And we'll talk about resentment afterward. Okay, so we'll put that on the table for now, or on the shelf for now. But so what I say is when you have these four factors, 3 plus 1, and not any individual one, but all together. When you take them all together and you see how much each of you has in the relationship compared to the other. And again, I'll say what those four are in a second, okay? We never expect them to be equal. That's why I do like a bracket. Okay, so someone is going to have more than the other. It's impossible on any factor in a relationship to be absolutely equal, right? So, but we have a range. And if one person feels that their range out of those four factors, okay, when you take them all together, is significantly higher than the other person, they feel, wait a second, this relationship is off kilter. It's out of whack. And again, it fuels resentment because it feels unequal. Okay, and the four factors. So the respect is one. Okay, and as you can see there's no respect there. Although I would think she may have a bit more respect than him, and she was being triggered by if that's really who he is, wow. Mm-hmm. He's devoid of any respect. Yeah. Okay. And the arrogance and everything, we'll go into that. So here's the three factors: commitment. Okay. Feeling, that there's commitment to the relationship to the other person. Investment, which is basically everything that you do. And then there's a flip side of investment, which is sacrifice. Because, and here's the thing. So if someone is, let's say you're both working and let's say the woman decides, or you both decide to have children and the woman has to, let's say take a pause in her career to have the children, or to get, that's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. She's sacrificing her identity, her, let's say, finances, her career, and so on. But if you can turn it around and go, but she's actually investing in the family. She's investing in the future, right? But sometimes the sacrifice, it's impossible for the person to see it as anything other than a sacrifice, right? So as much as people don't like it, the reality is we keep score. Some people literally keep score, but most people we have this sense of. That's what I'm saying about this balance. So again, if I feel that I sacrifice so much for you, and in return, I'm not feeling either the investment or the sacrifice or the commitment, right? Or the respect, then there's no reciprocity. Human relations are born. Animal relationships are born. Are built on reciprocity, right? There has to be the give and take. So I'm just saying to everybody, and I use this with my patients all the time. If you talk about all the specific stuff that you do, that's one thing. But if you have these fundamental factors, in overall, how much do you feel that we each invest, sacrifice for the relationship? How much commitment is there? Do you really feel invested? Does the first person look like they're really invested and committed in the relationship? And is there respect? Okay. And if it's out of, like I said, if it's unbalanced, there's going to be so much resentment. Okay. And in this case, we can see wow, Yeah. So anyway, I'll start with that. It's just, as again, so that people can move away from the stupid video and think about their own relationships based on those 4 factors and whether there's imbalance or not.
Yeah. But back to the stupid video, all 4 of those are clearly completely out of whack. And as far as the whole keeping score, I think that's something that really stood out to me too, where she said, I do all this effing stuff for you and you can't even peel an orange for me. Right. There's obviously an imbalance of, who's sacrificing what for whom. That statement shows a complete blatant level of disrespect from both of them, because it's not healthy either to throw things into one's face, even if you are keeping score, even if there is that imbalance. That's not a healthy way of communicating that imbalance. So all 4 of those are just completely out of whack.
Exactly. And now going back to him, and I can just go on a whole tangent here, but there are so many young men today, either I hear about them from their partners or I'm talking with them and I'm going, what the hell is wrong with you? Because they're learning these types of things that he's talking about from the manosphere or the womanosphere. I don't even know what they call it for the women. Okay. But there's just such these divisions where they're saying that, this is what you should do. This is what you should expect from your partner. It's like this stupid test here, right? Like, for him saying, well, he's trying to convince her that he's doing something that's good for her. Right. I'm trying to make you, as you said, like an independent woman or whatever. And he could not even understand that she's saying, yeah, but when you do something that the other person can do, but it's an act of service, right? He didn't get that at all. So that's a lack of empathy. And for people to understand, empathy is not feeling sorry for someone or feeling someone's pain. Empathy is truly understanding or trying to understand the other person's perspective. That's cognitive empathy. And he had none of it. Yeah. He was just, trying to defend his point. And again, assuming this is all real. If this is real, like, I'm going to tell you right now. So I'm just saying, if I saw this in session, like I would be saying, you need to really change your perspective. This is, and again, that's almost gaslighting. Okay. It's not actual gaslighting. And I know that term gets misused, but if this idea that he's trying to frame whatever the hell he's doing, right, as a positive, she knows that.
Yeah, he's framing his mistreatment as a positive and as being helpful.
Right. Exactly. And to make her a better person, basically. Right. So he's the one who's going to elevate her. I'm trying to elevate you. Like that is a type, like I said, a type of gaslighting, and if that's a reflection of other ways he conducts himself, then, she really has to question, why is she in this relationship? That's an unhealthy relationship. Can't diagnose from afar, but that's an unhealthy dynamic, let's say. And if that's reflective of the relationship, then it's a really unhealthy relationship.
Yeah. On the off chance that it's just a bad day, okay, fine. But chances are that's if this is a real video and these are real behaviors, that is a representation of a very unhealthy dynamic in a relationship.
For sure. Yeah. So, and by the way, here's the thing, the orange test. So I guess that now I see what this is. So yeah, if you ask someone to peel it for you and they won't, then it's a sign. Well, depends on what the reasons are for that person not helping, right? There can be a bunch of different reasons. So in his case, like, by the way, when he says, I do so many things for you and so on, is it possible to give him one sliver of the benefit of the doubt? Is it possible that truly he does invest and sacrifice a lot for her? Okay. The respect we can see is not there unless he snapped. Okay. But maybe he does all these things. Maybe he's so committed to her and he's not seeing it from her. And that was just him snapping. I don't get that sense. I'm just giving a little sliver of the benefit of the doubt, but that could have been possible because you and I, we always try to bring nuance and we try to take a comprehensive approach. We don't want to just take a black and white approach to these kinds of things. So I'm saying some people could have an off day. So what I was going to say was, if you have an orange test or something else, I always tell my patients, I say, if this is who they really are, run like hell. Yeah. Because that's really not a healthy partnership. If, however, I say to them, so I say, you have to think about that. I'm not talking about the orange. I'm talking like sometimes there's some terrible things that go on. I go, if that's who they really are, and they did that knowingly, consciously, willingly, and so on, then you should really question what's going on here. But the alternative is that it's circumstance. You caught them at a bad moment, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So again, it's possible that that's happening here. But like I said, I just see this guy as a complete I'll leave let people fill in the blank.
And I guess one thing I'll add here for looking at the hypothetical possibilities, if somebody is saying, and I think this is essentially what you were alluding to as well, but if somebody is constantly asking their partner to do absolutely everything for them and they're not doing anything to reciprocate, then I could see maybe somebody would snap or not want to, assist or engage or whatever the case may be.
Right. Oh, and one last thing. Again, just because of the way she was acting, okay, maybe it's because of the camera. Mm-hmm. I don't know if she's an influencer. I don't know if she's doing this all the time. Okay, but perhaps that maybe she's manipulative.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe he feels that she's testing him all the time, or she's doing this crap that she sees online all the time. Again, we don't know anything about these people, so I'm just putting these out as possibilities because I just don't want anyone watching this and going, "Oh, that's a great idea." Like I said, think about the backstory, whether about the videos or about your own situation. So what I was going to say was, if someone asks them to do, to peel the orange, and they say no, it's not the no that's relevant; it's the why.
Yeah. And I guess what I'll add too is this whole idea of tests, I think I don't know what word to use. It's gross. Like, I don't think that that's a healthy thing to do. And I understand that in some ways we, are testing the limits of relationships and the dynamics and so on and so forth. But it's manipulative to do it in such a way where you have a specific agenda and a specific outcome that's being expected. And not to mention, if the advice out there online is break up with them if they don't, well, that's a real problem.
Yes. And one more thing, which is very new. Well, it's only the last generation, which is so many of these discussions that you do see online, whether it's a test or it's just a conflict, is being recorded.
Yeah.
The minute you're recording, this is like the experimenter effect. The minute that you are recording something, sometimes after a few seconds, the people seem to get really into it and then the camera or the phone's no longer relevant. Okay. But it does have an impact. And if he knows, again, maybe she's tested him a number of times and, maybe he's playing up to the camera, or it's just like, oh gosh, he's doing it again. And he's just had it. I don't know. But I'm telling you right now, when we see people recording everything, right, it's going to make the other person react. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's intrusive. Yeah. We're having this private discussion and you're recording it. Are you live streaming it? Are you going to use this against me? And by the way, I've had patients where I've said therapeutically, you should record the discussions. You should, because it can help each of you. It's not a got you. It's like, oh, wow, I thought I said this, but I realized I didn't say that. Or I said it, but my tone was so off. Or especially if the video, and John Gottman, who you referenced earlier, made a fortune off of this, which is, watching the person's facial features, rolling the eyes, other signs of, that are subtle or not so subtle, but the other person is catching and so on, right? So it can, if it's done for your own benefits, great. But if that's a tool, in most of these cases, we see it's being used as a weapon.
Absolutely. Okay. So with that, let's watch the next one.
You have to answer honestly. Okay. If you were walking past a strawberry field, would you take a strawberry and eat it if you were really hungry? Picture it. You wouldn't?
No. You think I would?
You were like walking, there was a strawberry, you wouldn't grab it and pick it and eat it?
No, because I'd probably want to wash it.
What if you grabbed it and you washed it?
Sure, I'll eat
it. Okay.
Okay.
How many would you pick? Like, how many would you? It's like a field, a strawberry field. How many?
5.
Okay.
Where are you going with this?
What if there was like a fence
that blocked it?
Yeah.
Then no.
But you would only eat it if it was easy to get.
Oh gosh.
No, wait.
Oh my god.
Answer the question, please. You would only listen.
I would not.
You said 5.
I would not.
This is me asking the question.
Okay.
You said what you said already.
I wouldn't touch nobody's strawberries. I wouldn't touch nobody's strawberries.
Again, you're interrupting. You would only get it if it was easy. Correct?
No.
Okay. Look at the camera. Stop looking at me. So you said you'd pick up about 5 of them if they were easy to get. Correct? Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So you would cheat if it was easy for you.
No, that's not. No, I knew you were trying to. No,
that's basically what you said.
I'm not touching nobody's strawberries.
You're done.
Except yours.
Oh, that's such bullshit. Oh my gosh. So she wouldn't even let him refine his response once he had context. Like, that's not a test. That's a trap. That's terrible. That's so horrible. And it sounded like once he had the context, he was like, okay, wait, let me actually refine my response. And she just wasn't having it. And I guess the point of the strawberry test is to see if your person is going to cheat. I'll let you go, Oren. I need to formulate my thoughts here. This is ridiculous.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask our producer afterward to give me that video because I want to find this person, this woman. Okay, that is just reprehensible on all fronts. And now that looked legitimate. That was a real, I think, right? That's a real video. This poor guy, sorry, again, I don't know these people and I can't diagnose or anything like that. But if that's how she conducts herself, I don't know. If he was my patient, I'd be telling him to run. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, I get context, et cetera. But if that was a reflection of how she acts, and even she said, don't look at me, look at the camera. Why? He's trying to have a face-to-face actual discussion with you. Are you the professional? Are you the expert? Are you the interrogator? Mm-hmm. And as you say, as soon as he realized there was context, right? And by the way, I didn't even know what she's asking about. And when he's saying about the field, at first I thought, okay.
I didn't get it either.
And I still don't even know, by the way, is this supposed to be about cheating? Because is it about greed? Like, would he take 20 or 30? Would he share with other people? Is it about, I don't even know why she would say cheat. Okay. It's not even cheating. Yeah. It's so stupid. Yeah. Is it about, do you know, like the fence? Okay. Again, is this question, and to this, again, I want to find out more about this strawberry test now, because if someone hears fence, it means one of two things. Either it's private property, therefore I don't want to, again, infringe on their space, which is what he took it as, okay? Or some people, what she was saying about you would only cheat if it's easy, or you'd only cheat if it's easy. So is it that I'm not willing to put the effort in? And is that supposed to be the effort for the relationship? Is it effort in general? Or is it effort to cheat? Like, it makes no sense. Yeah. And it's a stupid test.
So stupid. And that was exactly where my train of thought went to at first. Cause I've never seen this. You've never seen this before. So I thought it was, okay, is she trying to gauge if he's an ethical person? That's where I thought it was going with, okay, well, you walk by a field, would you take them? It almost sounds like a question you would ask like a small child about stealing or shoplifting. But yeah, I took it as, okay, well, then if there's a fence, no, you're not going to cross the fence because it's somebody else's property and you wouldn't violate that private property. That was where my mind went. But then as soon as she gave that context, that doesn't even make sense. So the context that she provides saying, well, if it's easy to do, then you would do it. That I don't see the connection. I really don't. And I'm just angry now.
Yeah. And what about like it was 1 or 5 or 10? What's the relevance? It's like, so now, I've assessed thousands of people using valid psychometric testing. And I also use what's called projective testing, the famous Rorschach ink blot and the thematic apperception test, which people can argue and question and everything like that. I won't even get into all of that. But the fact is, with the projective testing, there's a standardized testing, there's scores, there's algorithms, there's computations. Like it is actually pretty valid. Okay. The other one, the thematic apperception test. And so again, when I say the Rorschach is basically, you see ambiguous art and you have to say what you see. And it's not that simple. I hate when they do it in movies or TV shows because they always butcher it, right? I'm offended as someone who's done this for many years. But the point is, there is a science behind it. And then the thematic apperception test, where you see pictures and you tell stories about it, all right? It's less sciencey. I say it's as much art as it is science. But I'll tell you, interestingly, because I've done this with so many people, and I do a simulated version in class, right? I don't know, like I'll take someone I don't even know. And I'm able to tell something like really profound about that person based on this test without knowing anything about them. There's limitations, okay? And I've defended these in court many times. The point is, these are projective tests. So what I'm saying is, I am highly qualified to do these tests. I've done them on thousands of people. I've spent much of my life doing them. So I can see an answer, I can ask the right questions, and I can tell a lot about you. Mm-hmm. These types of tests, okay. Again, because I don't even know what they're looking for. I'm sure that that they these people ignorantly or naively see them online and they're told this is going to tell you this about the person. Okay, no, it won't. If it's a projective test, right, you need to be an expert to understand what these answers mean or don't mean. Okay. And you have to ask the right questions. What she was doing was so wrong about it. And years ago, I think it was 2003 or 4, I could be wrong, but there was a book called The Game. Okay. The Pickup Artist Guide to, I forget, I think it was a secret look. Sorry, it was a look or something like that into the secret society of pickup artists. All right. I forget the guy who wrote it. It was based on one of the main characters was Mystery. He's actually from Toronto. And then they had this TV show, The Game. Back in the day, 20 years ago, every male had read it and women had not. So they were using these techniques. And there was, I think it was from The Game, called The Cube. You're walking along a beach and you see a cube, and then they ask questions. Is it on the ground? Is it elevated? Is it really elevated? Is it opaque? Is it clear? Is it large? Is it small? Are you on the inside? There's all these different questions. Okay. And it's supposed to tell you about a person's personality. There's other ones. You're walking through a lake. You're walking along. You see a body of water. Is it a pond? Is it a river? Is it an ocean? Right? There's all these types of projective tests, and they are projective tests. And again, if someone actually took any of these types of scenarios and did proper testing, asked tens, hundreds of thousands of people about it, got their responses, saw that people who are male or female, let's say depressed or not depressed, psychopathic or not, and if they saw patterns, then you could start making, it may be a valid test, right? But in all these cases, I'm just saying this to anyone who ever thinks about doing these tests, right? They are as invalid as can be. They can be fun. And, it's just like interpreting dreams, right? There's the right way and the wrong way to do it. If you have a dream book and you say, well, you dreamt about just drowning, therefore it means, well, then you're doing it wrong. Because even Carl Jung, the master of dream analysis, said, and again, I know it sounds like I'm going on a tangent, but this is for anyone who ever thinks about any of these tests. Okay. Even he said, okay, before you do your first dream analysis, he said this to his students. He said, learn everything you can about dreams, learn what you can about history, archaeology, science, all these things, culture, because you want to be able to understand what these symbols can mean. And then he said, when you have your first patient, throw it all out the window, because none of it's relevant except for as in response or in relation to the other person, to their own subjective idiosyncratic experiences and interpretations, right? So it's the same with this. It can say certain things, but you have to be so careful because it's more likely not. And in this case, you know what this test tells me? I have no doubt. You know what this test tells me about? Without a shadow of a doubt?
Maybe this is what you're thinking or maybe not, but it tells me about her insecurities.
Well, I was going to say about her. Yes, exactly. Whatever words we want to use. But yes, but let's say her flaws for sure. That's what it tells us about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I was going to make the exact same point as far as, these are not psychometric measures. There's no evidence or data or research backing the validity of these. So they're trash. Long story short.
Right. And again, if it's done for fun, great. And by the way, with my students, I used to joke with them because I would tell them stuff that they could do. I used to joke around saying that the game, the book, a lot of these techniques that they have, if anyone is ever thinking about the book, I used to say, read the book for the skills that they provide, for the insights into how to put yourself out there, ask questions, become popular. I say, so take all that and filter out all this other stuff, which is basically how to pick on people's insecurities. Okay. And how to make them second guess themselves. If you filter out the part about being an asshole, it can actually be helpful for someone who has social insecurities because there's a tool bag that you can use to really, to put yourself out there. Right. So I think that's great. So what I used to joke and say that since Mystery's from Toronto, I said he must have been one of my students because some of the stuff that they use there, I talked about that in class. Maybe not the exact same technique, but the same type of approach. So what I'm saying is if you have these kind of games and you do them for fun, that's great, right? Talk about it, joke about it, whatever else like that, but don't put any stock in it, right? And by the way, with the 5 love languages, I will say one thing, since you brought it up, speaking of fun. So I use that with my patients all the time. I say, look, it's faith-based, whatever that means. The quiz itself is sometimes infuriating. It's forced choice. I would rather my partner, let's say, buy me dinner or give me a massage. Okay. And a lot of times, it's like, I don't care for either. Like I've done the test. Okay. So, but other times, the point is, what I say is, if you're going to do it, it's free. It's online. You can find it. Okay. I say, do it twice. And I can't believe that Gary Chapman doesn't say this on his site. You do it twice. You do it for yourself. And I think it's like 30 questions, maybe, forced choice, right? So you do it how you would answer. And then you do it one more time for how you think your partner will answer. And your partner does the same thing. You do it separately. And then you get together and you look at the results and you see how well you know each other. It's a great relationship building exercise as long as you do it collaboratively. It's not a competition. Everyone's always a competition. Okay, fine. You have some fun with it, but you can't use it as a got you. I can't believe you didn't know that. Yeah. I'm into acts of service or physical, So I tell people, you can use it that way, and it can be very helpful. Again, any of these things can be a tool or a weapon, right? She was using this as a weapon, and geez, Louise, okay?
Yeah.
But it was, the way she was using it, it was like she was trying to stab him with a shotgun. I mean, like, she's just that's a weird metaphor, but she was just so incompetent using it. It's just so, I have nothing but negative things to say about how she conducted herself. I feel so sorry for that guy. And again, I want to find out from our producer. I want to watch that video. I want to follow up, see what happened, see if he just ran from her and saved himself a lot of headache.
Yeah. Because again, if that is a true representation of who they are, he seemed like a nice enough guy answering her questions, but she was controlling. Her tone was just like so rude and demeaning. And I can't imagine what that relationship would look like. Mm-hmm.
You're interrupting him. He's just trying, he doesn't want to get caught in a trap.
Yeah.
Right? You're interrupting me. Look at the camera. Jeez.
Crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yes, so.
Let's watch the next infuriating one.
Apparently, a lot of people don't know what the bird test is, which I'm sure there's a better name for it, but that's wild to me because I live and die by the fucking bird test, okay? Because it never fails. And if you don't know what the bird test is, it's like a test to gauge whether or not a relationship will be successful. And usually it's in the context of a romantic relationship, but I always do this with friends, family members, literally anyone that I meet. If they pass the bird test, I tell them so fast because this shit is so fascinating, okay? And I'll give you an example. I meet this girl, we start becoming newer friends, and we go to Starbucks one day. We're sitting at this table at Starbucks and I'm looking out the window and I see a woodpecker in a tree and I'm like, holy shit, there's a woodpecker in that tree. This girl whips around so fast. She's like, where? I kid you not, for the next 10 minutes, the two of us stared out the Starbucks window just watching this woodpecker fucking peck away at this tree while we Googled random facts about woodpeckers, okay? Now, the bird test states that if you're with someone, whoever you're going to do the test with, romantic or not, if you say something that could be deemed insignificant and your partner responds with genuine curiosity, what woodpecker, where? That's a really good sign that your relationship will last a long time. But if they blow you off, they don't acknowledge you and they're just oh, cool, a woodpecker, that's a really bad sign. And again, it's for romantic relationships. But I'm telling you, do this with your friends, do this with your family members, because that girl and I, still homies as fuck, all right? The bird test never fucking fails.
Okay, so I don't like her, but I do actually think that there's some validity, quite a bit of validity to what she's saying there. So back to John Gottman, something he talks about often are bids for affection. So I think that's what this bird test is based on, at least in part, where we make bids to our partners. It can happen in friendships too, just like she said, but talking about something that is of interest to us, even if it's not of interest to our partner, them showing that genuine interest and desire to engage is incredibly important. So I'll give her that.
And it's so funny? When she said bird test, what? But as soon as she started saying the story, I said, oh my gosh, a patient just literally the other day, 1 or 2 days ago, was talking, but she didn't say the bird test. She was just saying hypothetically and blah, blah. And if I'm looking at a bird and my partner, so she must have read about the bird test. Now it makes sense. Now I got to remember, I got to go through my roster and see who it was, because I want to say to her, now I see what you're talking about. But yeah, and the way she was talking about it, she didn't make it like this person, oh my God, blah, blah, but she just threw it off casually. But she was saying exactly what you said, which was, if your partner shows no interest in even these minor things, and the thing is, that's a great, let's say, litmus test. But the fact is, and we talk about this, or we see this in couples therapy all the time, where, just feeling that the partner is not, that goes back to my thing about the invested. They're not invested in the relationship. That would be more about commitment, okay? Because it's not that when I use the word investment, there's two types. There's the investments I make versus being invested. So if I say being invested, that's the commitment. So yes, if someone, it's not perfect, because someone can be completely committed to the relationship, but they're not really that interested in what the other person has to say. So maybe they like the idea of a family or the idea of a relationship or whatever else like that, but the person, him or herself, is not that interesting and so on. So I'm sorry, I don't want to rant too much, but I do think that is a great, again, I agree with you 100%. I didn't like her at all, but I love that notion. And I just love it more. Like I said, that one of my patients just talked about that the other day.
Yeah.
So
one thing I'll add, though, that I think could potentially be problematic down the road. So she said, talking about this friendship, and now they're, quote, homies as fuck because of this interaction. Well, I don't know if we can chalk that up to being, you know, best friends forever and ever because of interactions, strictly because of interactions like that. And not to mention that when we're talking about the context of romantic relationships, people may be more invested or appear to be more invested or interested or intrigued in the earlier stages because they are trying to, you know, put their best foot forward. So, you know, being very mindful of that, it should continue throughout the relationship, but A, it's not the only determining factor of a great relationship, and B, it may fizzle out as time goes on because that's not unusual in a long-term relationship, but it's important nonetheless.
right. So the presence does not mean that it's going to be a lasting great relationship, but the absence is something.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And to this, again, just to expand a little bit based on what you're saying. Yes, this new relationship energy, or NRE, that people talk about, of course, you're putting your best foot forward. And so if someone doesn't show interest, whether it's a date, whether you're meeting somebody, right, if they can't even muster that much energy to pretend to be interested, that's a great warning sign. Like, whoa, okay. And that's like, just so a little side note here, when we talk about psychometric testing, I want to add something there that I won't get to the backstory, but let's just say that a lot of companies use tests that are supposed to be able to screen out, you know, bad employees or get the best employees or things like that. And they have these validity scales. Well, again, as someone who has used these tests and has taught about these tests for many years, thousands of times, the fact is, these validity scales, I know it's a little side note, a little tangent here, but it might be interesting. Okay, these validity scales, if you have any social savvy at all, you will not get caught on the lie scale, like they're trying to make yourself look good. Okay, you will know what I can say to make myself look good that's reasonable versus trying to make myself look good that nobody would ever, you know, say something like that. Okay, so there's those kind of questions. So here's the funny thing with these companies, when they would say, like they would have these tests and they say you can increase productivity by 10% or 20% by getting the best people, blah blah blah. They're not getting the best. What they're doing is they're anyone who can't fake well enough, you know, on this test, they're not going to be a very good productive worker because they don't have the intelligence or social savvy in most cases. Now there could be exceptions, of course, but by and large, if you have like 10,000 people and you can weed out the 10, 20, 30% who again just don't have the wherewithal to be able to answer the right question. It doesn't matter whether you would actually act that way. It's whether you have the ability to know how you're supposed to act. So what they do is, again, they're not getting the best. They're just weeding out the worst. Okay, and that's how you get increased productivity. So just a little side note here about the absence versus the presence kind of thing. So anyway, I'll put up there.
So with these 3 videos, I think that there's, you know, something that people can take away, or at least what I've taken away from these is that people are looking for guidance on whether or not to determine if the relationship is good or not. But the problem with these is that it puts people into boxes. It's overly general. And like we've been talking about here, they're not valid. And what I mean by valid is in the sense of being repeatable, being predictable in terms of what characteristics would lead to what outcome. There's none of that here. So in fact, and we've been saying this essentially, but I'll say it bluntly, these are not helpful. In fact, they're harmful.
Exactly. Unless it's done in the spirit of fun. Okay. And you recognize that if it opens up the conversation, let's say about the strawberry thing, right? Instead of attacking him, she could have asked questions about, okay, well, what were you thinking? Blah, blah, blah. What would make you more or less inclined to take it? Like things like that. Or why did you answer that? If done in that way, then it's informative only in the sense, or it's helpful only in the sense that it's leading to discussion. It's leading to potentially open discussion. But the way it's being used here, just destructive. And for anyone to think that I'm going to find the answers on the internet in this way with these basic, simple tests, which again can have so many different interpretations, et cetera, that's just naive. And it's the same I used to say to my students in class. I'd say, how many of you have taken like the IQ tests online? And they put up their hands. They say, okay, well, whatever your score was, take off 30 points. Okay, for believing that you could test your IQ validly online. Okay, I said you fail. You can't do that. Right. again, as someone who's tested people's intelligence for a living, I know you can't do that. You've done that as well, right? So now, and by the way, again, one more thing, once again, for people, it's not black or white. So for example, with intelligence testing, some of the tests that they do online, they represent facets or small components of a broader valid intelligence test. But there's other things that you cannot do online. You need to have all this other stuff. So it's only part of it. So same with these tests, as you say, it can give you some information, but it's really up for interpretation.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, unless you're an expert on interpreting these things, you shouldn't be doing that. So
absolutely. Yeah. So I guess our usual question of what can people do instead? These are good conversation starters, like you said, and the old cliche about relationships is communication, communication, communication. But there's truth to it. But good communication. What these examples in these videos are examples of poor communication and communication that is intended to trick people. But engaging in conversations as far as, asking these as hypothetical questions, I could see that actually starting a good, giving a good idea to one another of how you would react. So let's say I did ask you to peel an orange. What would you do and why? And then, creating some dialogue around that, I think could be helpful.
Exactly. And it has to be done in good faith.
Yes.
And the person has to feel that it's safe to engage in this discussion. And by the way, again, I'm trying to broaden this beyond these stupid videos. I've had many patients where I've had to tell them, yes, the question that you asked is important. It's valid. You do want to know, but you have a certain tone. Yeah. Or maybe it's late at night and you're not being empathetic. You're not thinking, this person wants to go to bed right now. It's not, 4 o'clock in the morning is not the time to ask them all these questions and so on. So you're not getting the best them and so on. So yes, as you say, it's not just about communication. It's about good communication, healthy communication, empathetic communication, productive communication. So yeah, anything that facilitates that is great. These can, the Chapman, the 5 love languages. Everyone calls it the love languages of love. No, it's the 5 love languages. Go online, find it, do the test, do it for yourself, do it for your partner. Check the scores, see, and use that again to help in the relationship. And the final thing I'm going to say is just because I mentioned it, but just one, I've said it in other podcasts, so I'm just going to say it very quickly. Please, I deal with this so often and people don't like to hear it because they don't understand what it means. But all of these videos that we're talking about, okay, if you look at it, they are all about either they represent or they can foster and foment resentment. Okay. And I'm going to say it one last time. Resentment, all it means is, if you really look at it, it just means I feel you have wronged me. And the important thing is I feel wronged and I'm upset about it. You can say upset, you can say hurt, take your pick, but I feel you have wronged me. And the important thing is, if you feel you've been wronged, then your cave person DNA tells you get back at the person, whether it's through aggression, whether it's through passive aggression, whether it's through withdrawal, whether it's through saying things in ways that are not as good as they could be. All right. Whether it's through, cheating, whatever the case may be, right? That always be mindful of the resentment you hold. And remember, resentment is either partially or sometimes completely unconscious. And if it's unconscious, it's often unfair and it can be irrational. Okay. So, and if you're ever going to have the discussion with a partner about the resentments you hold, okay. Because again, think about that. If I resent you and I feel you've wronged me, why would I elevate myself? Why would I sacrifice myself? If I'm tired, why would I do more for you when I feel that you still have wronged me and I haven't got my justice? I haven't felt there's been recourse. I haven't felt there's been compassion or understanding about my perspective. How can I, force myself to overcome that resentment, whether it's a giant resentment, like if you've been cheated on, or if it's a buildup of all these little resentments over the years, right? It's become a mountain, right? How can I motivate myself to overcome that mountain if I feel that resentment has not been dealt with, okay, and heard? So just think about the role that resentment plays in the relationships. And again, all these exercises, except for the bird one, all right, it's pure resentment. That's what you're creating with these tests and everything like that. Okay, especially when the person's feeling manipulated or trapped and so on.
Absolutely, yeah. So we want to know from our listeners, what do you think of these tests? Do you think that they're something that you would try? Have you tried them? Let us know in the comments.
And are there any other tests that are online?
Yeah, I'm sure
right
there's
now?
more.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, until next time, keep your eyes on the road and your hands upon the wheel.